Well, welcome back to another edition of Will and Reed Talk D3 Baseball. No title for this yet. Maybe we'll get one eventually, but who knows? But I'm Reed Rosales. I'm joined by Will from D3 Region 10 Baseball, and we're just here to talk about our thoughts about NPI, potential hosting sites, and a bunch of different stuff near the end of the year because it's been a really fun season to watch. A lot of interesting storylines going on. Yeah. Well, I guess I want to start off with, well, what's kind of been just your take generally on the season?
Yeah, honestly, it's been madness. Obviously, I cover Region 10 as a whole, and last year it felt like the SkyAC really dominated in moments, especially early season when they were flying teams out. This year, not so much. So we're kind of seeing a little bit of change with that. Obviously, old teams becoming young and young teams becoming old type feel. But really, I think we called it really early in the season that the ODAC was going to be really, really good. I think like 2 weeks in the season, we had a conversation, and some people were like, no way, like it's going to fizzle out. But it's just chaos. We're seeing a lot of chaos between Region 10 and Region 6, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah, a lot of chaos indeed. Uh, we'll start out with the NPI. I'll give just a brief explanation about NPI because if you're listening to this, good chance you know already what NPI is, but just in case you don't, NPI is the new mathematical formula that the NCAA uses to decide their at-large bids. There's a bunch of different dials that go into it. The specifics of it don't really matter. The essential things to do in NPI is to one, win, and two, schedule tough. You'll be rewarded for doing both, and you'll be heavily rewarded for winning tough schedules. You can make it into the tournament with a not so tough schedule, but you have to win essentially every game on your schedule to do that. NPI is not perfect, it has its flaws. It's much more streamlined than what we had before, where we had these regional committees putting out alphabetical ordered lists. I just think the first NPI was released 1 or 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we would have gotten an alphabetical list of every region and had to guess, well, where exactly are these teams ranked? But now there's no questions about it, and it makes kind of projecting into the future a lot easier for pool C bids. There's no drama come selection show Sunday, which maybe is sad to some, but I'm sure a lot of teams don't want to have the heart attack that is waiting to see their name on the board. But yeah, that's the brief explanation of NPI.
Yeah, and I think MPI is unique in the fact, like you said, Reed, of the main goal of it is to schedule the best schedule. But there's one team that I put on our list that they are probably going to sneak in with not the toughest schedule. So it's great. It's good that you mentioned that because there is a way to game the system if you were to play like the 360th ranked team 40 times and beat them 38 times, you'd get in. So it's good to know that you brought that up as well. And it's thoughts just not outside of my own of to game it.
So I guess bringing up the most recent version of our NPI scores, this is going to change a lot because a lot of upsets happened this weekend that are going to shake things up quite a bit. For example, Shendoa got swept by Roanoke, who I thought
Mhm.
was looking a little dead in the water as of late, but then they come out and sweep Shendoa on the road, which is something they hadn't been too particularly great at. You also have Trinity. We're recording this the day before Trinity plays their rubber match against Sewanee. They split yesterday in 2 games. So that's going to be interesting. But one of the big things when NPI first came out, Will, was I was shocked, not at the ODAC. I knew the ODAC was going to have a bunch of top teams. I was more shocked about the Collegiate Conference of the South having 3 teams as high up as they did. It wasn't necessarily Belhaven. I knew Belhaven would be up there. And I kind of had an inkling that Piedmont would be pretty high as well. Because they swept Belhaven and they'd also beaten good teams. I was more surprised by Maryville being as high up as they were. They were kind of the team. The expectations for reality, like they're probably like top 30, probably in there. But they're the highest ranked collegiate conference of the South team right now, which I was not expecting. I think they started their year 1-6, and then they started conference play 0-6, which is why I wasn't expecting them to appear. So I don't know if you have any big surprises, expectations to reality differences for when NPI first came out.
Yeah, honestly, Maryville was the biggest one. But when you pull up their schedule, it is so like you either swept the series or didn't like got swept by Transylvania. Won two of three versus Wittenberg, and Wittenberg sitting at like 12 or 13. They lost to Montclair State, which is up there. They beat Adrian, which is top 16. They went 1-2 versus Piedmont. They got swept by Belhaven, but they swept DTBU. Like it's one of those things where like it's so random how they're there, but like makes sense. Like they've played really good teams. They haven't had any like major losses from what I'm seeing. Yeah, the Asbury they lost one game, but and Covenant, but they lost 2-2, I guess, this weekend. But that doesn't show yet. So it's like they haven't lost any like major games where some of these teams have lost some really bad losses. They have a lot of really good wins and good losses, and not that many bad losses, if that makes sense. Which is insane to see. You don't really see that that often.
Yeah, one of the good ways to check the strength of a schedule is one of the greatest things that NPI has is that you can click on a team's rank and just have all the data in front of you. It's a really strong schedule. Like over half their schedule is against teams in the top 100 of NPI, which
Mhm.
will also benefit you a quality win bonus, which is one of the components of NPI. If you play a strong enough team, you get bonus points. You get more credit if you win, which Maryville has done a very good job of.
Kind of from the Region 10 standpoint, coming into this year, I thought the SCIAC was going to be a lot better than they have been. When you're looking at it, obviously you have CMS leading the way, 18, but they just went 1-2 against George Fox this weekend. They have a pretty sure another game today, so their ranking might just fall through the floor. You have Pomona Pitzer sitting at 50, currently out unless they win their conference. Laverne 71, Kalu 76, and Chapman at 89. Where last year it felt like Laverne, CMS, Kalu, Pomona were all sitting in the top 30 to 40 all the way until the conference tournament. Even Redlands was the first team out last year. So that was kind of a shocker for me so far. Is like the SCIAC has not done what the SCIAC has historically done last year in the NPI, but really, when we look at when it used to be the regional rankings, they haven't done what they used to do. So it's very interesting to see of like Region 10 might not be as strong this year, or maybe it's just the SCIAC's not as strong, which has kind of lowered Region 10 as a whole when they all play each other. It's just been interesting.
Yeah, I was definitely it is a little shocking to see one SkyAct team in because the entire basis for the SkyAct hosting like a regional site, say getting a little ahead of myself here, but is for two teams to make it because the NCAA tries not to put conference teams with each other unless you're the SkyAct, then
Mm-hmm.
you are
Yeah.
the
You are the
exception.
exception.
But if it is just one SkyAct team, that team's going to be flying somewhere, and who knows where they go. Uh,
Yeah.
that was definitely shocking. I was a little shocked. I thought Kalu was going to be a little higher ranked than what they are now. I think they're 71. So it is disappointing, but I think my disappointing for Region 6 is the SAA. The SAA last year got three teams in. They had Center, Millsaps, and Rhodes. And out of those three teams, I was expecting Center to get in this year because Center, I don't know if you know this, but I'm pretty sure they lost literally no one from last year's team. Like
Yeah.
it's the same team essentially. But I think you get to see the scheduling factor come in very hard for Center because if you look at their schedule, their non-conference schedule, it was not strong. It was very not strong. Their best non-conference win was U Chicago. And like U Chicago, they're a good team. They're a quality win bonus team, but like
Yeah.
you would expect Center to be playing someone like I don't know, Transylvania or like in a three-game non-conference series
Yeah.
like
And
early on in the year.
that Center was the one. that I kind of called pretty early. I had them in my top 10 or 15 on my ballot in the preseason. Then they go 2-1 against Chicago. And then Chicago goes against a place Pomona Pitzer like 2 weeks later. And Pomona Pitzer, I swear, outscored him 90 to like 15. And that's when I like sat there. I literally that next week I put center at my 25 spot. And like people were mad at me. Like I was getting messages like, no, center's a top 10 team. And I'm like, I'm not sure about it, but like you said, Reed, there was a lot of high hopes for them, and it's looking like, hey, they're gonna have to win some series late here and get an AQ to get in. But yeah, that was definitely a shock for sure with them.
Yeah, it's like I was also expecting like so they played Transylvania and they're going to play them in midweeks, but I was expecting more of a
Yeah.
proper series out
Yep.
of those. Like if you look at their schedule, you'll see the opposite of Maryville essentially. Like over half their
Mhm.
schedule are against teams below 150 in NPI, like a
Yeah.
vast majority. And basically you can't lose any of those games because a
Yep.
bad loss will tank your NPI forever. This has like
Yep.
an example. When NPI was first rolled out, Trinity women's soccer lost to Occidental in their first game of the year. They either lost or they tied, but they Occidental ended up being the lowest ranked NPI team in the league, and that completely tanked Trinity's NPI for
Yep.
hosting purposes. It destroyed them. Like, well, a
Yeah.
bad loss can really tank your season more than you
And
think.
and we didn't explain this at the start of the episode, but if you're new to NPI, you get your 12 best wins go on your into your equation, and all your losses go into your equation. Which is unique in baseball that they selected 12 because I did this analysis last year and every other sport has like 40 to 70%, I want to say, of their win of games count as wins. So it's like, I feel like baseball should be more closer to like 18 to 24 game or 24 wins count, but obviously the committee selected 12. It's 12, so everyone has to deal with it. But all your losses count. So to Reed's point, like you lose like one or two really bad games, good luck. You're gonna have to have some really good wins to even it out.
It makes it especially tough for baseball because midweek games in general are just they are chaotic, and it's very easy to drop a midweek to the random 250 NPI team that you either go to or bring in. And if you
Yeah.
lose, like that's on there forever. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah, it goes to the thing. Obviously with Trinity, they always in the first like 2 weeks have like 6 to 8 games in a week and a half. And it's like for NPI, sometimes that's going to hurt them because we're going to see them. Oh, we brought in the sales and they might not be as strong this year. And we're throwing a guy who we're just getting innings for, but okay, he's struggling. Throw the next guy. It's D3 midweek baseball. People are going to score 20 runs. Like that's why I wish it was higher on the wins to balance those out. But like I said, Reed, is what it is.
It really is. Back to the SAA for just a moment. Rhodes
Yeah.
is almost, I'm not going to say they're sitting pretty right now. They could, there's definitely time to drop out of the tournament for them, but they're in the best position in the SAA right now. And Trinity has not had the season I think that they were really hoping to have, at least not the season I as a alma mater, so no bias here, was hoping that they would have. The SAA could either be, I think right now it's looking like at max two teams, Trinity and Rhodes, or it could end up being whoever wins the conference tournament is going to get in, and that's it, which is a little shocking, a bit of a disappointment from last year.
Yeah. And what was so interesting about the SAA last year is the NPI came out for that like Saturday that had all three teams in, and then they didn't play on Sunday through the rain. Very smart by the SAA. I don't know if they purposely did that or not, but I mean, For them, they don't have really that, like, no conference really has that option this year besides maybe the CCS or the ODAC, where it's like, okay, we're gonna get multiple teams in. If we have crazy weather and can't play through a lightning storm, it's not gonna happen. So for the SAA, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see, like you said, will it become a one bid if someone just upsets Trinity and Rhodes in the conference tournament and wins and their NPIs tank just out? So that'll be an interesting race to see come the tournament.
Yeah, it's been a bloodbath this year in the SA, much more so than I was expecting. Um,
100%.
yeah. So another thing we need to mention about NPI for kind of bracket purposes is if you're in the top eight, you cannot play another top eight team until the College World Series bracket gets
Mhm.
released. That is a rule. So the top eight teams are very, very happy being top eight, which makes it interesting because we have right now, as of now, probably not going to last. We had three ODAC teams in the top eight. Now, this isn't the first time a conference has kind of dominated NPI in a sport. Men's soccer 2 years ago, I think like it was either five or six out of the top eight were NESCAC. Like they were all
Mhm.
NESCAC teams, and the NCAA just had to be like, "Oh, we have to deal with this somehow." It kind of
Yeah.
gives more parameters for the committee to kind of put these teams in regionals and connect these regionals together because you can't play another top eight team in a regional or a super regional now, which is good
Yep.
because if Region 10 gets two top eight teams, the NCAA can't force them together like they might have in the
Yeah.
past. But it also makes the bracket a little more expensive for them because now it's like, well, we can't do that. So now I guess we have to fly one of you out. Because if it's like two
Yeah.
SCIAC teams, like, oh,
Yeah. It was like 20, I want to say it was 2022 in baseball. You had Calu, Chapman, and Pomona. And I want to say it would have been Pacific, all in a regional in Southern California. And all three of those Sky teams were top 25 teams. And Pacific at that time was kind of just dominating the NWC. Um, and it's like you have four teams who are like top 25. And at that time, I'm sure Pomona or Chapman or whoever was the winner of the Sky would have been a top eight in MPI, maybe even two. And it's like, for example, they can't just put Shenandoah and Lynchburg in the same regional this year or Bridgewater, which honestly evens out the playing field more. We saw this with the NJAC last year, where Rowan and Kane ended up going into the College World Series. Well, in years past, they could have been in the same regional. So it's honestly good for the sport. It just costs the NCAA more money.
yeah, and as any D3 fan knows, like what the entire joke of what the Penn State football coach's salary is bigger than, or his buyout is bigger than the entire budget of all of Division Three. Like,
Yeah.
yep, NCAA's got to save money where they can at this level because of
Yeah.
our budget. Um, but yeah, I think right now the ODAC teams are situated in a better place than like say if we had three SCIAC teams in the top eight because
Yep.
there's more teams on the East Coast. It's just as
Yep.
simple as that. I ended up mocking up a bracket. I was able to get all three teams to host a four team regional. Also, something very new is we have 64 teams and not 60, which was what
Yep.
we had in the past. We had two regionals of best of five games, which I always found interesting, but
Yeah.
want to be more like D1.
Reed, let's get into like who's like your kind of bubble teams to watch. I mean, for me last year, I felt like kind of whoever was in the top like 100 coming into the end of the year has a chance. Just because like you're gonna be playing a conference tournament, say you end up beating a team that's pretty high in the MPI twice because you knock them out. You have a good shot of getting in, obviously, because you probably won your conference tournament at that point, but also you just got tons of MPI points. So, kind of who are you watching for to make some moves kind of at, at a hole in the nation?
I think at a whole in the nation, really, the biggest one I think is kind of the obvious one. I think Pomona is probably going to be an at large.
Yeah.
SCIAC is tough. They're also a lot of teams beating other teams. There's not like a clear favorite, but Pomona is, I'd say, like a tier above. I think it's fair to say some of the other Skyac teams. So I think they should be an at large. I'd be surprised not to see them in that position. And it's kind of cheating because they're literally the first four out, so they
Yeah.
don't have they don't have a lot of ground to make up.
I would say either them or Kalu. It seems like Kalu just gets stupid hot, usually outside of last year, when it comes to the conference tournament. And this next week, Kalu and Pomona play each other in their series. And I have a feeling whoever wins that series is probably going to be the one who gets the at large if CMS wins the conference tournament. So it'll be very interesting. I mean, Pomona, it's really the only place they can get points is against Kalu this next weekend because they swept Caltech this weekend. And then their last weekend of play, the first week of May, they play Oxy. So it's like they could get some points from Oxy because Oxy is a better team than normal, but I think they have better top 12 wins besides that. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. But I think either Pomona or Kalu get another at large. But I
And
don't
I don't,
think both of them do it.
and I don't mean to just call it a Region 6 team, but
Yeah.
Huntingdon, I think, also has a lot of upside. They just won the series against Bellhaven. So they've
Yeah.
upset Bellhaven. And next week they have Piedmont, who's also very highly ranked in NPI. And you can shoot up NPI if you just beat like the top
Yeah.
teams in the top 15. So
Yeah.
Huntington's got a good chance. I think they also have a good chance in the conference tournament too. I mean, they were the Cinderella run team last year. They were literally
Yes.
the only bid stealer last year,
Yeah.
which is a bit shocking. But if anyone can do it,
Yeah.
it's them, and they're a lot better than they were last year.
Yeah. And that's an interesting point you bring up too, Reed. We only had one true bid stealer last year. And when you're like looking at last year where it was 42, when I was doing like the mock thing, I was like, why does it end at 43? Like, wasn't it 42 last year? And then I started thinking, I was like, oh, we had only one bid stealer last year. And I had told someone on Twitter or X, like 40 plus is probably a good number. I'm like, no, 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 no. This needs to be like 35 or higher because now we're going to have like 10 bid stealers, and some parents going to be mad at me that I told them, if you're in the top 40, you're fine. Um, but honestly, like, they're a really good team. They can win a conference tournament as well. But we're going to have some bid stealers this year that we didn't last year. It's just the name of the game.
Yeah, it's baseball, right? That's the
Yep.
good old saying.
Yep. One team that I'm actually like have voted on my top 25 here and there was Worcester. Obviously, I played for Coach Swick when he was at Willamette, but really solid team. Today, they play number one Denison. So realistically, if they find a way to take one of those games, they're up there because they're currently sitting at NPI 51. Obviously, Denison's one, so that would be a huge NPI boost and would put them in. But they're going to have chances at them. They have two today and then probably one in the tournament. They also play Wittenberg, which is top 15. They split with Wittenberg. So I think that's a team that could be very sneaky. Obviously, I've followed them more than most just because I know the coach, but they have a lot of chances to get a lot of points come conference tournament time, even if they don't win it.
Yeah, I will also just mention as an aside, Wittenberg was also a very surprising team, not NPI, but just this year. They're kind of surprising how
Mm-hmm.
how well they've been playing.
Yeah. Honestly, between Denison and Winberg, it'd be a shame if they end up in the same regional. Just pointing that out at NCAA, we don't want the same teams that are really good in the same regional that played each other 5 times. Um, yeah, honestly, there's a lot of really good teams like that could just surprise people, if I'm being honest. But that's like my one big look at is just Worcester because like they have the potential to get a lot of NPI points here late, and not too many people are gonna realize, oh, they went 2-1 versus Denison and Wittenberg in the tournament. Wait, they're now in somehow. They jumped 20 spots. So just be on the look for that.
And one team that I think I want to point out in particular, we both want to point out is so last year, SUNY Brockport was in a position to host a regional. They had won like a ton of games, but if you looked at the schedule, it was not against like the greatest of competition. This year we're having a slightly the same conversation, just with a different team in the Empire
Mm-hmm.
Eight, and that being Russell Sage.
Yep.
I was looking for when the NPI first came out, like, okay, who's playing the tough schedule and who is playing the schedule to get wins? Who's got the win machine going? Because like you win, you're gonna get in. That's just kind of the name of the game sometimes. And Russell Sage seems it's just kind of funny. It's come from the Empire Eight again, but Russell Sage seems to fit the SUNY Brockport bill from last year.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I got a lot of hate on this last year when SUNY Brockport was like 38, 3-1. And I was like, they haven't played anyone. They're average, like, I don't even know if they played anyone in the top 50, let alone top 100 MPI. And a lot of people were like, nope, they're going to run through their regional. They're going to run through their super regional. And then they went 0-2, and people were like, okay, maybe you're right. But I'm like looking at their schedule now, and obviously they beat Tufts, which, hey, pat on the back. Tufts is a really good team. They're probably going to make a lot of noise this year, but there isn't anyone else like too crazy um, that they've played. Actually, Southern Maine is MPI 30, and they had that win. Um, but they don't play anyone too crazy until they get to St. John's. I think this next week, so it'll be interesting. They played not that many teams in the top 100, but they're sitting pretty well in the tournament right now.
I guess we can do just a quick run through for our respective regions and potential for multi-bid conferences. I think it's safe to say ODAC probably going to be multi-bid. There'll be a couple ODAC teams in there. Same with the Collegiate Conference of the South. I don't see a future where there's not.
Mm-hmm.
SAA is a little touch and go right now. We'll see what happens. It really
Yep.
depends on if either Trinity or Rhodes gets upset near the end of the year in a series. If that happens, then I would say probably one bid, but that doesn't happen, maybe two bid. We'll see. USA South
Yeah.
is a one bid conference.
Yeah.
Coast to coast, not counting Salisbury. Mary Washington and Christopher Newport have improved like quite a bit
Yeah.
from last year. Christopher Newport wasn't particularly close to the bubble. Mary Washington was, I can't remember if they were first four out or if they were like first eight out of the tournament last year, but both those teams looking to get in. Um, and UAA, Emory, man, had a lot of hopes, but Emory has they lost the series to Chicago. They're trying not to get swept by U Chicago right now. That'd be a disaster. But
Yeah. It's so interesting to see how many conferences touch Region 6
yeah,
because of the oh yeah, this team's in Region 6, but like this other team in their conference that's like probably like an hour down the road isn't there in this region. I'd honestly want to see like how the regions are selected. I have no idea how that works, but whenever I see like the UA and coast to coast, I'm like, how did someone select this? But kind of for the Region 10, NWC is going to be a one bid. It's going to be whoever wins the conference. I had hopes with Whitworth that they were just going to keep improving their NPI, but after losing 2 of 3 to Willamette a couple weeks ago, that definitely tanks their MPI major. So doubt two bid from the NWC. Skyac should be a two bid. I think either Kalu or Pomona boost their MPI high enough to get in. The SCAC sadly is looking like a one bid. Somehow I thought the SCAC was going to be a lot better this year mathematically, but it seems like TLU might take it. But like Torno is in second place right now. They're one game behind TLU, so we'll see how that conference tournament shakes out. But the ASC, oh, Reed. Mary Hardin Baylor was looking so good. And then the wind decided to be blowing out down there in Marshall, Texas. So um, that's going to be a one bitter, too, I think. I mean, ETBU just blew the brakes off of Mary Hardin Baylor in 4 games. And sadly, think the Region 10 is only going to have 5 teams, which is crazy to say from 2 years ago having 9 and last year 8. So,
Yeah, I wonder like how much of it is like Trinity and leaving the just the region and leaving the
yep,
SCAC because they're a huge boost to any conference's NPI just because of the way they schedule.
yep.
And they're going to win some of those series like Whitewater, who's top 8 right now. Trinity has a series win over them, which
Well,
helps them out.
what's even crazier about that, Whitewater's only losses are from Trinity. They're like 28-3, and their only losses come from the first weekend against Trinity. And that is why Trinity's MPI is so high, where people are like, oh, yeah, they're going to be way out. Well, they beat Kane, they beat Tufts in a game. Like, they beat really good teams, but really where Trinity's MPI is being boosted is Whitewater hasn't lost a game besides the Trinity. So, sorry, everyone. The math equation favors Trinity in that sense.
Yeah, Region 6 last year, believe it was 10 teams. Could look
Mhm.
at you could look at 13 or 14 teams for Region 6 this year. You're adding the bonus coast to coast. SAA losing one potentially. You could have 5 ODAX, but it's the
Yeah.
well, maybe we'll get into this a little bit, but the conference tournament format for the ODAC is not conducive for multiple at-large bids the way they do it. Because the first
Yeah.
weekend is a best of 3 series, and then it goes into a 4-team double elimination, which that's a lot of losses for certain teams.
Hmm.
That's which is not what you want to see. I mean, I'll always say it, the best conference for at-large bids, if they're good enough, will be the UAA because they don't play a conference tournament.
Yep.
They just they just end their season. Like,
Yeah. It just ends, and then they wait for everyone else to lose and drop
mm,
below them,
mm,
which is like going to my point with what the SAA had last year, where they didn't finish their conference tournament, so teams just lost ahead of them and got below. Um, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who ends up coming on top, who hosts. I know we were wanted to like look at MPI's last year numbers. It'd just be interesting to see what the cutoff line for it was, because I wanted to say like the magic number was somewhere around like 57 and a half points, which is kind of what it's looking at this year for that like cutoff number. Um, if it's 57.5,
mm.
if that's the same,
So
if
it's
that
actually
team,
it's a little higher if that's the number this year. Last year, our cutoff was Oswego State. They were the last team
yep,
in. They were NPI 42 at 56.827 NPI
damn,
rating.
we're right now as today, 52 is 57.374, which is St. John's Fisher.
Mm.
It'll be interesting to see how, if year over year that MPI um, number kind of is pretty consistent where that cutoff is. That'll be something to track throughout the years. But what is that magic score that gets you in versus not? Where we knew with the regional um, before, usually 31 wins was the magic win number. If you went 31 and 14 or 12, whatever it is, you were probably in the tournament. I'm very interested to see what the magic NPI line number is now.
All right, so we wanted to move into talking host sites for potential host sites for the NCAA tournament. Well, I'll let you kick it off.
I have a theory that if you alluded to this earlier, and I got a massive smile on my face when you said it, but I have a theory that there is not going to be a host site in Southern California. And my reason being is if Pomona does not get in, I do not think that Claremont or CMS put in to host because they're playing at APU's field. And there just seems like there's too many teams in like the ODAC and like Texas area, like that southern area that are within that 500-mile radius that they wouldn't just fly the one SKYAC team either out to Texas or any of the other ODAC sites, and then fly the NWC team to like Michigan or the Whitewater area to save money on flights because then it's just two flights and everywhere else they could probably figure that 500-mile radius.
I was even considering the fact that Claremont isn't really playing at their home field right now. That had completely
Mm-hmm.
slipped my mind. Yeah, I do agree with you that if Pomona doesn't make it, it's not going to happen, even if they were playing
Yep.
at their home field.
Yep.
It's yeah, it's the crappy part about being in Region 10 is like you are the spot teams for the committee
Mm-hmm.
because Claremont's going to be a two seed. So whatever regional doesn't have a two seed, it's like, oh, Claremont, have fun
Yep.
in Kalamazoo, Michigan.
Yep.
You'll be there
Yep.
because you can put them anywhere. Region 10 will have a regional
Mm-hmm.
though. I think that is going to be something that 100% happens. And it's not going to be
Yep.
uh, I think it's most likely at ETBU,
Yeah.
and the biggest reason is because we got a team in Jackson, Mississippi, and Belhaven that's probably making the tournament. Although now things are slightly weird because they might not be a one seed after this week after they lost to Huntingdon. So who knows what happens if that happens there?
Yeah, and we might see something. We saw it last year quite a bit where the one seed wasn't the host. Like
Mhm.
Bridgewater State was the four seed and was hosting the regional. It's like, okay, Endicott's like 100 miles down the road, but this one team is like 50 miles outside of the radius. So we've got to move it to Bridgewater State to make it work. So I'm sure we're going to see some of that. Like ETBU was a three seed hosting last year. Um, but you make a great point. Like, what happens if Belhaven's like a mid two seed and so is ETBU? Like, who do you say is the one seed in that case? Do you give it to ETBU because they probably win their conference tournament? Or is Belhaven higher? Like, if they're 19 and 20 in the NPI, is it just the higher NPI team gets the one seed? So it's very interesting. I think ETBU is a great host site as well. They have all the facilities to do it, but it'll be pretty interesting, especially since Mary Hardin Baylor's probably out unless they win the conference tournament.
I will say one of the big factors that people don't take into account is commencement and graduation happens during
Mm-hmm.
regionals and super regionals. So I
Yes.
believe what happened with Endicott last year was that Endicott's graduation was during the regional. So that's why
Yep.
they didn't I don't think they put into host. And that's
Yeah,
why
it was this
yeah.
same thing with Trinity last year. Obviously,
Mhm.
we knew that. It'll be interesting to see like where it all lines up. Because like you said earlier, Region 10 is such an island this year with only gonna have five, maybe even four if something drastically bad happens in Region 10's favor. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with kind of those island teams if it's just one NWC and one SKYAC.
Yeah, and it's important that you mentioned that just because you are a quote unquote one seed, there's technically not seeding in this tournament unless you're not
Yep.
even really in the top eight technically until you get to the College World Series. But you can't
Yes.
split because we have the 64 teams, you can't split them into four groups of 16. And
Yeah.
the NCAA tries to make it balanced. They're not trying to put a two, three seeds or something like that into a
Yep.
regional. They really are trying their best to balance it, but with the geography of Division three,
Yeah.
it's difficult at times.
Yeah. I think I did a breakdown last year, and maybe it was only like 5 to 6 teams weren't there like in their true seed, but they're like okay, this team's 3 spots off of what their true seed would be. They did the best they could. Hats off to NCAA. Um, but kind of like some unique ones. I think Whitewater is going to have to be like a host seed because I don't think Lacrosse or UW Oshkosh is going to make the tournament like people thought. Um, and so I think they're going to have to be, but also Adrian's going to have to be. So that'll be interesting with the mileage stuff in that area because it's like that's why I think like Whitworth or whoever the NWC is going to fly out and be part of one of those two regionals is because do they have enough teams within the mileage to make it work?
I think one of the problems I had kind of mocking up my own bracket, especially on that first one, is that the Midwest, they have a lot of low seeded teams out
Mm-hmm.
there and not as many high seeded teams, which makes bracketing difficult. It makes
Yep.
you have to do Google Maps calculus to try and figure out who's within. Because another rule, there's a couple rules for that the NCAA uses. One, if you're within 500 miles, they'll drive you, and they will drive you. You're not going to get a
Yep.
flight over drive just because it's more convenient for you.
Yep.
It saves money to bus. Also, they try to avoid pairing conference opponents in the same regional, and if not that, playing in the first game that they'll play in the
Yep.
tournament. So when I mocked up one for this set of NPI, it's kind of useless now because it's completely different. But I was able to limit it to just the Region 10 teams are flying.
Yep.
I was able to limit it there. And but the way I was able to do that was I couldn't get Adrian to host. I got Kalamazoo to host. Kalamazoo and
Okay.
Adrian are very close to each other, which is why I think
Yeah.
one will host and the other won't because they're very like
Yeah.
geographically. But I got Adrian, Baldwin Wallace, and Bethel. Bethel is such a Bethel and
Oh.
Bethany Lutheran are like basically in the same place in Minnesota, and that is like
Yep.
the middle of that's almost as much. It's not like a Region 10 island, but it is. It's not
Yep.
it ain't great for the NCAA committee, but I was able to
It,
get them all to
yeah.
Milliken.
Okay. The Milliken. Yeah, it's so interesting when you start looking at those areas. Like you said, there's a lot of low seed teams, but there's some like random high seed like Whitewater, Adrian, Kalamazoo. They're all those like higher teams. Um, I hadn't like made like a full like bracket, but I had Whitewater, Adrian, and Kalamazoo as all host sites, assuming they were all just the true number ones.
Mhm.
Um, but you'd have to find some way to pull some teams from the Midwest up to the upper Midwest, and it would be a nightmare. Let's just say that. But it'll be very interesting to see when we get actually like, okay, here's the teams. Let's make a full actual bracket and have some fun with it. Because I'm assuming you were only like 2 or 3 flights
Mhm.
with yours with NWC and then probably two, assuming 2 SCIAC teams, and then flying someone to SoCal, or if it's just CMS flying them out to like ETBU.
Yeah, well, so I used the most recent NPI. So I flew. So there's only one SCIAC team in there. So I flew Claremont, I flew Whitworth, and then I had to fly one of the ASC teams out of Texas
Mm,
because you can get a region in Region 10 without having both ASC teams in there. Well, but now it's like because now
yeah.
the reason why the mock bracket is bunk is because UMHB is not gonna. Oh,
Yeah.
they I'm not going to count them completely out, but it's going to be very difficult for them to be in a position to be in the
Yes.
tournament.
Yeah. And um, uniquely with this as well, with the most recent one, you have a lot of same conference host sites of true number ones.
Mhm.
You have Denison and Wittenberg. You have
Mhm.
Kalamazoo and Adrian. You have uh, Shenandoah, Lynchburg, and Bridgewater College um, that are all, and you have Piedmont and Bellhaven and Maryfield. What I had did with my mock one is I put Shenandoah and Piedmont together as like the super regional pair,
Mm.
Lynchburg and Bellhaven and Bridgewater and Maryville, just because like geographically, I think the NCAA tournament had some fun last year where they had ended up having to fly CMS all the way out to Boston after they had just flown them to Wisconsin. And I'm sure the flight from whatever airport they chose in Southern California out there was not cheap. So I doubt they're gonna do that again, where they have the chance that CMS, because it could have happened that CMS flew to Wisconsin, flew back home, flew to Boston, flew back home, flew back, then flew him back to Ohio for the tournament, all within a 3 week span. And so I doubt they do something like that again. And that's why I think they put all the Region 6 teams like paired in
Mhm.
super regionals if they could.
Yeah, I what I did for my super regional pairs, I think I only had one regional that would have to be a flight, and that was the Region 10 regional, which is par for
Yeah.
the course. Uh, but yeah, you can pair like Denison and Maryville, Salve and Tufts, Rowan and
Yep.
Mount Union, Shenandoah and Wittenberg. That's a pair.
Yeah.
Lynchburg and Piedmont, Whitewater and Adrian, and I had Bridgewater
Yeah.
Hopkins for one of my pairs. It's like there's a lot of pairs you can do, and I thought the NCAA they kind of threw me for a loop last year when the Claremont thing happened because even if lacrosse won, that's a flight from lacrosse
Boston. Yeah.
to Boston. So maybe I have to relook at that and see if there was really no other good pairings. But my my assumption is that the NCAA looks at the one seeds and just assumes that the one seed is going to win the regional,
Yep.
and then they pair it from there in the super regional. That's how they look ahead. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a lot of room rife for chaos if the one seed doesn't win, then you could be getting
Yep.
into a lot of different flights potentially.
Yeah. And it brings up another good point. Like in a hypothetical, doesn't this super regional have to be submitted as well that you want to be a host site for it? Or is it only the regional that you have to submit before the season?
I believe they're separate. I don't
Okay.
remember off the top of my head, but I do believe you can say we can't host a regional, but we can host a super regional. I do think
Yeah.
you can make
Okay.
that distinction.
Because it would be interesting in the fact if you had someone like CMS win a regional, but then they're playing, but then they were going to play someone who had graduation, and they're like, we definitely can't host. And CMS is like, hey, Pomona, can we use your field to host a super regional? Um, which makes it versus like very interesting things. Or like last year, we always had the highest seed host a super regional, but is there a world where like you had someone that was like NPI 100 somehow win a regional and then they host the super regional because the number two team in the nation can't host for so whatever reason, um, which would be pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, and it's like we don't even have to say for graduation. There's just some schools that don't have the resources to host, right?
Yes.
We see it in football more because football's a lot more hands-on, but it's like so you can't if you don't have the resources to host, you just don't put in the host, right? There's
Yeah.
like not every team puts in the host.
Yeah. And that's what's another thing is with this like building stuff, obviously building a bracket. The region
Mhm.
10 teams I know like who can host, who can't. Like even Pomona is like borderline. Do they fit the minimum people can be there? The five, I want to say it's like 250 or 500 people can be at the school.
Mhm.
But it's like, I don't know, like, can Mount Union host or Denison? I don't even remember if Denison hosted last year or these schools that I'm not as familiar with. Like, can they host Wittenberg, Kalamazoo? Like, did they even submit for a bid? So there's a lot of question marks that obviously go into this that we don't know right away, but always fun to speculate and see what the heck could happen. And I'm excited to see when we get really close to it because I feel like the last 2 years when we've talked, you've been like almost nail on the hammer. I think like 2 years ago, you like said, oh, it was actually the Pomona and Willamette is what
Mhm.
it was. The 5 game set. You had like
Yeah.
told me that, and I was like, No, they're gonna fly them both to Texas. Like, there's no way. And obviously, being a Willamette grad was cool to go down to Pomona for that. But like last 2 years, you've been pretty nails on the hammer. So I'm excited to see what you come up with when we have all 64 teams in front of us that
Yeah,
will be a part of the team, part of the
I'm
tournament.
excited too. It's always fun to get together and talk about NPI and stuff. Maybe, yeah, we'll come back and circle back on this in a week or two, see where
Yeah,
we're at before maybe conference tournament time,
of
because
course.
that's going to be at that point during conference tournament season. NPI will actually update every day, or it should. That's what it did last
Yep.
year. So we'll get beginning live updates, and we won't be recording this the day before NPI gets updated.
Yeah. Um, I had another just like random MPI thought before we go. Pretty sure I just put out on as the NA conference, which I'm pretty sure is the North Atlantic Conference. SUNY Cobble is MPI 274, and they are currently looking like they're winning that conference. And I'm sitting here thinking, Reed, is there a world where we see a 300 MPI team win their conference? Um, yeah.
It's definitely possible. I know the North Atlantic has just kind of been dominated by Husson over the
Yep.
past couple years. Um, I don't, I'm trying to think. Yeah, North Atlantic Conference. This is Husson, Cobleskill, VTSU, Lindbergh. It's a lot of teams that people probably haven't heard of, but there's a lot of conferences in D3. It's Go take a
Yeah.
historical quiz of D3 teams and see how many you can name. It's hard. It really is.
Yeah, and what's it's just crazy to think that like they could get cold right before the conference tournament, lose, go like 1-8, and then just go 3-0 on their conference tournament, and their MPI 320 won their conference tournament, and it's like, okay, how is this team there? Right. So I'm interested to see what happens with them. They'll be a team I'm looking at of like, can we get an MPI 300 team into the into the tournament?
It's always exciting. I love any Cinderella story in baseball. It's the best sport to have a Cinderella
Yeah.
story in because it's like the
Yeah. There's like,
most likely to happen, really.
yeah. Yeah. It was like Messiah last year, like MPI 40 something won their conference tournament. Okay. I don't remember what regional they were in, but then they're super regional. They have to play Salisbury, and it's like, okay, yeah, Salisbury should win this regional 2-0. Well, Messiah wins the regional 2-0, and you're like, who the heck is this team that I've never heard of that's now in the College World Series? So, baseball's sick. Hopefully, SUNY Cobble skill goes stupid as MPI 264 and wins a super regional. But yeah,
Well, yeah, I don't have anything else I want to mention about NPI right now. Just if you are a fan of any team, your goal right now is to just hope your team wins and your opponents win too. That is
yep,
also important because the stronger your schedule is, the better your MPI will be, even if it's just marginal. But last year, I think literally the difference was 1/100th of a point between getting
yeah.
in and not getting into the tournament. So yeah, it's NPI is going to be very close. I like always, if you're on the bubble, just win. That you can, and in essence, you control your destiny if you're on the bubble. So
Yep. Yeah, honestly, if we're being real, Reed, the best way to make the NCAA tournament is win your
yeah,
conference tournament. That is your one goal. As a team, like used to always hear it when I was playing. Like, let's make the tournament, make our conference tournament, and then just win the conference tournament from there because that is the best way to make it happen.
I think we'll leave it with that good message. So good luck to everybody playing games for the next course of the couple weeks. Make your conference tournament and have that chance to win it.
Yep.
That's really what matters right now. Right. Thank you, Will.
Yeah. Thank
This is
you.
always a fun discussion. And yeah, maybe we'll be back in a couple weeks before conference tournament time to reevaluate where we're at for everything, Region 10, Region 6, and a nationwide scope.
Of course. Always a pleasure.